Yeah, or almost like asking good questions. Like what are the questions we should be asking every meeting? Like what can we do to ask good not leading questions? Probing questions. I don't know. Yeah. Gosh. I just realized your spreadsheet populates this thing. That's awesome.
It looks like some of them are not, but most of them are. Yeah, which is great.
Now that one just isn't there because we haven't filled out the last one.
Right. So we have room for one more if we want to. Otherwise, we can kind of move to one of the others of these that we want to kind of, again, drill down a little bit more detail of how that might happen or ways in which we might achieve that.
So if I may, the reason I said to play the devil's advocate and kind of not the law, but the idea of unintended consequences is because of a conversation that I had with a business owner, fuel dealer, landlord person. And the conversation showed me, this was a conversation over an hour and a half. And a lot of it I actually, I recorded, and the unintended consequences, the way that he made me see what will happen. He said, there's a couple different things. He said, being a fuel dealer with SR5, you're going to be taxing fuel dealers. And guess what? Guess who you are going to be hurting the most? Danielle, yeah, I see, yep. Who are you going to be hurting the most? You are going to be hurting low-income Vermonters the most, because guess what? As a fuel dealer, that 70-cent tax is getting directly put out there on all of my customers. And who are they? They're people who are low income, who need to use the fuel. Why are we not talking about the F-35s? Why are we not talking more about McNeil? Instead, we're building a pipeline from McNeil to UVM Medical Center. You know, why are we not talking more about those things? So that's why I wanted to bring up like the devil's advocate kind of thing, just because, you know, in speaking with everybody, I know I know everybody's heart is in the right place, but to hear this from somebody who it's going to affect and how he is maneuvering his businesses. He said, for example, the taxes go up. Guess what? I'm not eating that. I can't. I have so many other things to take care of. The renters, yeah, your rent's going up. That's what's happening. You know, you think I'm just going to pivot because otherwise I can't be in business. So, and ultimately, so these unintended consequences, and I asked him, I said, so, you know, after a while I said, and Sophie knows this because I've already talked about this because it just really brought some things home for me. I said, so what are the solutions? What do you see as the solutions? And he said, you guys need to slow down and really look at the big picture. Like, slow down, look at the big picture instead of just saying, oh, okay, well, we're going to tax this and we're going to do this and it's going to be equitable because we're not doing it directly to affect the low income communities. So you're basically making me out to be the bad guy. But I'm not. I don't want to be the bad guy. I'm just trying to feed my family and run my business. So anyway, it was just very interesting, and it's something that I don't think that we talk enough about here, or in any of the subcommittees, actually.
Thanks for that, Krushka.
Mm-hmm.
That reminds me of something. I had a conversation with a member of the public about talking about the McNeil power plant, the biomass plant, doing that pipeline to do heat for UVM medical. And I was like, well, that's great. It's capturing waste heat. She was like, yeah, but if you build that infrastructure, that means that they're gonna keep just burning biomass. That's like putting that into like that's the whole sunk cost fallacy, right? Like we already have this plant, it's wasting a lot of stuff. It's not very efficient. What should we do? Well, rather than, to say like, well, let's just do something different completely. We're like, well, let's capture the waste heat, and then we build this other infrastructure, and then we're more entrenched. And I was like, that is a really good point, and I had not thought of it from that perspective. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't capture the waste heat and use it for heating a hospital or whatever, but it does entrench, like you get entrenched in that way of being because you put in the money and time in that infrastructure, and now you're kind of stuck. And it's partly that you literally have paid for it, you built it, but also psychologically we get stuck in that, like, well, we did this whole thing and now we have it, we can't stop using it. And that's like how we are with almost every. Well, I put in the propane boiler. I'm not going to take it out and put in a heat pump because I'm still paying off the propane boiler. And who cares if propane is way more expensive than electricity and more polluting, right? People just have that cycle that they have in their minds, where they've already put in the money, they've already put in the infrastructure, and they're not going to scrap it. And maybe maybe that's smart, maybe that's not. But you have to like free yourself of that thinking. And also, Kashka, what you're saying is, I think there's a thought that businesses can absorb this all because they have tons of money and they can do whatever. And I even sometimes think, oh, other businesses maybe, but like I am a business owner and I can't absorb any like random costs that come my way. I can barely deal with the ones that I've got. And most of the other business owners I know are the same way. We're like scraping by, but we're not raking it in. And we're trying to do our best to pay our employees a livable wage, provide them with good, meaningful work. But we're not living the high life, right? So that's a thing that people don't always. And like I fall into the trap too, because I just sort of assume, because people put on this like, oh, I'm doing great, I'm a very successful business, and we try to like look that way, but we're not always all sunshine and roses and all that. So I think, and I think the biggest thing is like bringing it back to, let's keep remembering that I really truly believe, and you said it, Kashka, I think you said it, Paula, I think I said it earlier, like everyone is wanting to do the right thing for everyone else. Like I don't think, there may be people out there, but for the most part, 99% of people who are working on this stuff, we want to do the best, and we're just trying to figure out what it is and how to work together. And when we have differences of opinion on how to do that, that's when we clash. But if we can take a step back and be like, we all want to do what's right. We all want to help the environment. We all want to have, lower our emissions and help the folks who need help and lift up voices that haven't been heard and do this. And we all want those things. And I just think that if we go back to that, it helps people take a deep breath and set aside some of the like anger and frustration and try to get down to, let's roll up our sleeves and get some work done. So all right, Sophie, I saw your hand and I'll get off my soapbox. I saw your hand, and then Paula, I see yours as well.
I was just, yeah, I had kind of a reaction to that because I think like the number of us, like when we say we all want the same thing, I think that it's not universal across humanity and across, Vermont, that we all want. I mean, I think it's important to remember that there are like genuinely evil people Just wanted to say that. And like not even evil people, just like people who kind of don't give a shit.
The narcissistic sociopaths, yes. I
Yeah, and
agree.
just like kind of random like jerks who only care about themselves.
I did
So-
catch it.
Money.
99%.
I mean,
And
I want us all to want all of that. And yeah, like I like Kashka, the work that you do and you like go out and talk to people and hear their perspectives. I could never do that because when you were talking to me about that guy, I was like, yeah, we've been hearing about this about the minimum wage and every change we've ever wanted to make to anything ever. Like capitalism is like, no, we can't change. It will, cut jobs. Like, well, no, you will cut jobs. Like, that's different. Anyway, sorry. There are forces at play that are like not in our control. And yeah, so yeah, I appreciate hearing the perspective of like an actual human being out there who's like
Mhm.
really feeling it. And like small business owners, definitely like they're stuck between a lot of things with not great options surrounding them. So I really appreciate you, spending an hour and a half talking to that guy. It's just great. I
He
really
was
appreciate
yelling
it.
at me, Paula.
I'm not, yeah, I could kind of tell that by the things you were saying he said.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I was getting really trampled on a lot, but it's all good. No, it's really hard. I mean, it's constantly like, I don't know, it's like constantly thinking like, how can we make things so, we consume less, maybe we can, give incentives to companies or people to do the right thing. Like it'll be more, economically viable for a company, for a small business, or for an individual to do the right thing. Like, so instead of say charging for public transportation to take public transportation, maybe you get, a 25% off your utility bill if you take public transportation, or something to offset, like something to change our thinking, like we have to,
Yeah.
right? But how do we,
Yeah.
anyway, my brain is too small for that.
Yeah. Unintended consequences are real for sure.
Mhm.
I love that idea.
I love that, Sophie. I think that's so important because I mean, there's so many people that are passionate, and just because they disagree with us, or it's not that we want to change your mind, but we want to find that common denominator. And sometimes that common denominator is just the fact that we're sharing this planet together. And, you know, perhaps that person has children and you have children, perhaps, you know, some common ground, but also just being open to, and realizing. So I did a lot of sales work in my previous life. And like our thing was, you will hear 7 no's before you hear a yes. And some of those no's will be adamant no's. No. So you cannot get discouraged. You just need to listen. You really need to listen and find that commonality, because ultimately, like, what do we share here? We live in Vermont. So whether or not you're on this side of the political spectrum or that side of the political spectrum, or this or that or whatever, I bet you that person cares as much about the forest as you do, if not more. Or, you know what I mean? Like, finding that commonality. I think what Sophie just said is really, really important when it comes to that. Yeah, the sharing feedback and comments, and teaching maybe the other subcommittees how to be better listeners. You know, because I'm sure they interact with people every day as well. So, and it affects their decisions and their the ways that they put forth recommendations. So
Yeah, I think there's some practices that we could put in place to help really not just hear the public comment and internalize it, but to help make sure that people who are speaking feel heard. And because I think we hear it a lot of times, but the people who speak are, it's like, thank you, next, and then they don't feel heard. That doesn't help with the person who wanted to share. So I think there's some practices that, and I'm really curious about this book now, Sophie. I'll have to look it up. Danielle, I saw your hand up. Are you still here? You dropped below my screen.
Yeah, I just, I'm looking back on our meeting minutes from September, and there were like some pointed questions in there as well that we came up with at that point, and just kind of trying to see where they would fit in on this lotus blossom. But I think the unintended consequence section here, and not only sharing impacts on marginalized populations, but asking questions about who was consulted and what did they say when you're thinking about different impacts. Who did you actually speak to? Like, where did your information come from?
that's really great, Danielle. Like, whether or not they did any community engagement and who they spoke with in order to get feedback, that is so important. Yeah, that needs to be in there for sure.
And if their answer is no, we didn't do that, then our follow-up can be, how can we help? And it might be like,
Perfect.
we're going to send Kashka out there to ask them. I don't know, but
Get me beat up again. I'm in for it. I got thick skin.
But yeah, I mean, someone needs to be asking the questions, and then someone needs to be receiving the answers and internalizing them. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for looking back to that, because
Yeah.
I have
Yeah,
a question, Abby, if you don't mind. So the people that they give comment on the recommendations, are you taking this into consideration? You know, like, are you listening to these people when people are sending letters saying, "Oh, this rules about electric car by 2020 by 2035 is not working for me. I am a low income. I cannot afford, to buy this. We need more another solution for this." They don't disagree with that this car will save the environment, but it is they will not be able to even afford it. So there was some public forum that has been done, and they said most of the low income and also immigrant communities that they don't have enough money to buy this car. They said we We don't know by 20, this is very close to 2035. This is coming very soon. And if everything is electric car and they cannot afford, what they gonna do? How they gonna go to work? What other options they have? So what do you do when people are objecting, these recommendations?
Yeah, and I think what Mona is trying to say too, also, like if say Mona's community or any community, has strong feelings or has a letter or has recommendations on one of these policies or one of the Climate Council's recommendations, who do they give that letter to? Like, who do they approach? Who do they speak to in order to be heard, right? Like, I don't know where we would put that, but I think that's right. Is that what you meant, Mona? Like, where do you?
Yes. So we actually sent. This was like me collecting like some information from these people about their opinion about this rule, and then I give it to the Center for Whole Community, because they are also like they have like some lawyers and they are having some like also advocacy for climate changes and stuff like this. So, but we never know what happened with it. Are they listening to what the people want? They keep saying community engagement. We need people opinion. We need the people that are mostly affected by this, and we are doing that and this, and then they don't do anything with what was the information that you collect from people.
I think it's this, to add to that, like the information that we're providing to the subcommittees, making sure that that is included as well. Like there's a question from these minutes, we need to understand what's the role of the Just Transition Subcommittee if the principles are not utilized. So if we're assisting groups to utilize the rubric, but then they're not, how are we holding them accountable to that?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I was thinking about on that group 4 section over there about the liaisons is it could be very uncomfortable to be the one who's like always putting on their equity hat and being like, hey, have you, and it sometimes feels like you're just taking people to task or trying to make a point and people don't always appreciate it. And so how that's like more of a question internally for our subcommittee. How do we help support the liaisons and help them feel empowered? And are we saying you need to go there and speak up in the moment? Or are we saying if that feels too uncomfortable, you can come report back and we will support you and figure out how to address a concern you have, but you don't have to be the one who says it. But also, do you have to know everything all the time, right? I'm just there as a liaison. I might not know that this thing that's being proposed would be really problematic for people in the trailer park in Bennington. Like, I don't live there. I don't know. I live in St. Albans, So that's where it starts to get really tough as a liaison. And so I wanted to think about how we're supporting liaisons, how we're supporting them and supporting the subcommittees, and that's like a many part chain, but I think it's something we can do. But I also don't want to put someone out there and be like, go for it, you're in charge, you're the equity person, go put a bee in their bonnet and have them then just get frustrated with you, right?
I think that's really a good point. Yeah. It would get, I mean, nobody enjoys that. Like, just, thinking about the people who come and give us public comments, like, they hate being there, doing that over and over, saying the same thing over and over. Like, it's dreadful. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, and this is where I go back to what I said. I didn't say we all want the same thing, Paula. I said, I think everyone wants to do the right thing. And I think we all want good things. We all have good intentions. We don't all want the same thing. And part of it is that we all, at the end of the day, are looking out for ourselves. Like we're humans, we're biological creatures. We are going to be looking out for ourselves and our families. That's the nature of being a living organism. But we, I think, do all have good intentions, and but we are mammals, we're primates. We like to look out for our communities also. So bringing other people into our vision of what is a community and how we're going to work together and how we do need to all work together to survive is going to be helpful in getting through this. But yeah, it's tough because we all have different things that we're focused on and different ideas of how we're going to get there. And no one has one solid answer that's going to do it. So we have to figure out how we can mesh this all and actually move forward instead of getting into gridlock. So, looking at the time, we did have public comment on the thing for 5:40, but I also don't know that we have any members of the public, so didn't want to, since we've been talking about engaging the public, did not want to breeze past that in case I'm missing something and there's someone here who's officially a member of the public. But yes, I don't see anybody who's not. So
No, I have a question regarding this public.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we're all members of the public also, right? So if you had anything to say,
Like I wanna just ask, how do you recruit the public to come to sit here? How the public knows about our meetings and about the council meeting? Only I see only people that they are really, really interested in this, and they search for it and they found out when. And but the regular majority of the public, or the majority of the public, they don't even know about this meetings, and they can voice their their opinion in such meetings and stuff like this. So what are we doing to to tell the public, yeah, we are here, come and tell us, yes, we're doing community engagement, but we want also us to these meetings.
that's a
And
really
I don't see a lot of public coming.
Yeah, these ones maybe not. Yeah. Well, I think so. Kashka's doing some outreach, I think you know about, and then Sophie, I think, are you able to speak, Sophie? I see your camera's off, so I wasn't sure if you. Oh, so basically, so Sophie, your position in the Climate Action Office is partly with like community outreach, right? So that's helping people, I mean, is part of your job helping people know, hey, this is the Climate Council, these are the subcommittees, this is what we're doing, here's how you can get involved, right? Is that part of your job description? Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I think that I'm right there with Sophie. I think that as far as public engagement and what we're hearing out there, it's you know, the capacity for people to be joining various meetings when it's not really, I mean, it's just not in their wheelhouse of immediate needs or wants or anything to do with their daily lives, really is just a big ask. If anything, I think people are more apt to join the climate council meetings rather than the subcommittee, you know, subcommittee meetings, unless they have a vested interest in something. And they know what's going on within that particular meeting. But I kind of wanted to offer up something. Abby, first of all, that Lotus thing is really cool. Like, I'm so visualizing that is really, really cool. And number one, but I wanted to, I think it's something that maybe Paula or Danielle, maybe one of you guys said this. So with the liaisons, like coming back from, you know, and saying, hey, like you know, have you reached out to that mobile park, or, you know, they haven't gotten feedback from that park. I wonder, so if maybe we could do something, and I'm not sure if it would be within my capacity, but I would do it anyway. I'll do it. So if Sophie hears this, if somebody, you know, if somebody comes back and says, hey, you know, this subcommittee's, you know, trying to put forth whatever policy or whatever recommendations, blah, 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 into some policy, and they haven't gotten feedback from, you know, when we ask the question, they really haven't gotten feedback from the community. Then that information, if you guys can bring it back to Just Transitions or bring it back to Sophie, then Sophie can bring it back to, you know, to me and Anne and our other team members. And I wonder if Sophie, if that would be cool, if we could help support like Just Transitions and the other subcommittees in that way through the Climate Action Office. What do you think, Soph?
Mhm. But that's cool.
So I think you're totally on the right track. I think that's definitely, oh my gosh, I can't wait. Like this, that is, I really can't. You know, I mean, that is so cool, like to be able to actually access the data, because just like we, you know, just like we've been talking about, it's one thing to, you know, be, you know, I go out there and I get all this feedback, and then, you know, I put it into a form, or I discuss it with my team members, and I discuss it with Sophie and, you know, and Jane and you know, people from the Climate Council or people that I know from the other subcommittees and you guys, but how does it get out there where it affects, where it actually, yeah, affects recommendations, right? Because it's feedback that's needed to be out there. So how do you access it? And with this tool that Sophie's talking about, that's going to be incredible. If like, just imagine you want to, you know, get feedback on this. This is what Vermonters are saying. This is what, you know, this is, oh, so excited. Anyway, but alongside with that, like, for example, one of the liaisons, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys. So one of the liaisons, one of the Just Transitions liaisons came back from, say, you know, science and data, and they are, you know, talking about the wetlands, blah, 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 blah. I don't know, but they haven't gotten any feedback on it. And so I don't know, it's somewhere in the Northeast Kingdom. So perhaps if I have capacity for it, within my contract time allowment terms, all that, if I could maybe go up to the Northeast Kingdom and talk to people who are living adjacent to the wetlands or where they're trying to build something, to get direct feedback. Because I don't know if, I mean, is anyone else doing that? Just so that there is feedback, right? So, yeah.
I think to like even generalize that, because that was the thing I was going to say, Sophie, when you were like, am I missing one other part? What you said, Kashka, about, yeah, if you're asking for feedback from a community or something, a subcommittee, and they're not getting an immediate response, they've got other things on their minds. They're trying to crunch numbers or whatever. They might just be like, well, they didn't respond, they must not care. But that is probably not true. So they didn't respond, we still need to reach out to them. Our job is to be like, hey, did you ever hear back from that, you know, trailer park on the borders of the wetlands in the Northeast Kingdom? Whatever, you know, fictional thing we want to make up right now. But we say, did you hear back from them? They say no. Then we help by figuring out how we're going to reach out again until we get some good engagement, you know. And so maybe it was that you reached out, but you reached out with a question that didn't resonate. Maybe it was that you reached out to the wrong person. Maybe it was that you just need to ask 3 times before, what was it, 10 times, Kashka, before in sales? Yeah.
7 no's, you guys, 7 no's.
7.
And the pigeon. And the pigeon.
So I think that's a thing to weave in here. So yeah, that was the thing that you said, Kashka, that I didn't want to lose, and I think that might be the thing that was like in the back of Sophie's brain going, what was that other thing? So I think there's a way that we can help, and it doesn't have to be Kashka going to the Northeast Kingdom to talk to them, but it could be, you know. I'm not saying that's not a bad idea. Or not a good idea. But yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. And it's so true. Like, we started out like asking really broad questions. And to give you an example, I talked to a whole bunch of high school students, and they're really interested in getting involved. They really want to be, they're interested to know what the Climate Action Office does, and they're interested to know, what's going on in the Climate Council, but they have no idea. There's like no civic classes in high school, whatever, but they're really interested. But when you start talking to them, they're like, well, I don't really get it. Specifically what? So the specific questions,
Hey, Hey,
Yeah.
Kashka, I'm sorry, I just saw Sophie has to run. I just wanted to real quick, and I didn't mean to cut you completely short, but Abby, if you could share the document in like a non-group edit format of our Lotus thing, I think that'd be super helpful just to let us all see it again. And Sophie, thank you so much. I don't think there's anything else I needed from you, but I just wanted to have send the thing out. Abby, Sophie, thank you. Okay,
Thanks,
go ahead,
Sophie.
Kashka. Feel